단 나말에게 선물라야 나로 딜리슈어 챕지도 네 다들인 네 가상 최네마 네 모튜니 슈알이야 난 도마 드린데 조당 의시 계속이 냠래 디 돈 슈아임브레
I'd like to wish everyone good morning, and we will continue our teaching from where we left yesterday. Today we are primarily speaking about the main practice, the creation and completion phases.
다들이야 도마 지구라마 춘즈면로 의시 계속이 냠래라 담보랑게 인동벌 공반네 동번이를 장수바 대유에서 빼만다 인다 공반네 대 인달의 장수바 대유에서 시가보 공반네 숭인주의 장수바 대레에서 저랑 그 통모면에 사베 디리 다네 류가르베 풍부 빼매 입도 버려줘바네 툭 찬선의 장수바 대용수 교발에 조 투지시 목군도가고 세지 차시바 차당분이도가 테마죠 얘기 얼마나 정정 얘기 얼마나 빼마 rumbuji naso gi gema targi toyo da mewa cheba shabdo ji gimu zhonggi pema da ni me wisu shuba de ne so ni yin jusum da tugari ishi sem ba chen kan zo de to go shiga bu tele yusir chebe nu tamji shaya gan ju tamji tuji shenbu gyuba gomba ne gu yong zo le chang shuba o
I will begin by reading from the text. For the main practice of creation and completion, first meditate that your heart is empty. This is enlightenment through emptiness. Meditate that in its center are a lotus, sun, and moon. This is enlightenment through the sun and moon, the seat. Meditate that in its center there is a white Shri. This is enlightenment through speech, the syllable. Light radiating from that purifies your misdeeds and obscurations accumulated from beginningless lifetimes, and your body then becomes a mass of white light in the shape of a lotus. This is enlightenment through the emblem, the mind. That transforms into the great compassionate Lord. White with one face and 4 arms, his first 2 hands are joined at his heart in prayer. There is a mala in his lower right hand and a lotus in his lower left. He is adorned by various jewels and wears silken upper and lower raiments. He sits in the center of a lotus and sun with his legs in Vajra posture. In the 3 places there are the 3 syllables. In his heart there is wisdom being the size of a thumb, in whose heart there is a white tree. Light radiating from that turns the entire universe into a palace and all its inhabitants into the great compassionate one. Meditating thus is enlightenment through the perfection of the body.
다 들려야 겁들려야 무시 지속 염려 니 예배 나네 당부대 기름이 염려 쳐요래
Now, of the 2 practices of the actual practice, the creation and completion, first this is discussing the creation phase.
다 기름들 지당기 유리시 난다 라나수스 메바 칸여기 이담고라 고메이베레 니베나 다리 급수 봐봐 다 투지시무 투지시무가 아니면에
Now with the creation phase, in general you meditate upon whichever deity from the 4 classes of Tantra you have the greatest interest in. But in this particular context, we are meditating upon the great compassionate one.
아데 곰베거리아 토마지 수수 지 대산르지 데스 웬바르지 가르리 데스 코스부르지요 데 베티지 체셰 에너지 땡지 데세기 지 땡땡 땡 데버르지 덴데지 예베 체셰 엔 디강리아 아네 류 가르리 다지 기존 가르다지 다 류데 가르지 봐 르르 체셰 아니 냠버 샤네 And
And so when we meditate on this, we need to first find a suitable place to meditate, a quiet place to meditate. Then we need to have a comfortable seat, a comfortable cushion, and then we sit on that relaxed with our legs in crossed legs, and we rest in equipoise on that.
다 저구 고베를 못해야 다 지기 원장하게서 알아보다 지 초가 시계에서 알아보다 아니 저 도지 순계에서 다 가지고 되게 이제 망도와 안갑들이야 네 원장아이고네 다 rum버르디 구름디 구름아이고 다 원장아서는 다도 라구군베 rum버아이고네 and the local Gomga.
Now, there are many different stages of meditating upon a deity. We can talk about these as the 5 stages of enlightenment, the 3 stages of the ritual. We can just talk about it as the 3 Vajra points of meditating on the body. Here, it is the sequence of the 5 stages of enlightenment. So these are 5 stages of visualizing a deity practice. And so we visualize the deity by going through these 5 stages.
That's how she did this true stuff. That name, Tomatelia, Rangi, Reni Tameba, Reni Tamebe, Tameba, Reni Tamebe. Never see Tamed Nebe Gita, Ningji, Kobeanang, Ningji. Ningdi and Kobatomba, Ning Chi, that's Ningi Bala, Nan Kobatoma Yibachi, the Nijukongo.
And so first you visualize yourself in your ordinary form, and staying in your ordinary form, you visualize that inside your chest, in your heart, your heart is empty in the center. So it's inside your chest, there's a heart, and it's empty inside.
Dadi Garsungorasana, and that's Tombanilong over Chanchubas Jeje. When Jangai Gone, Ribotambudi, Tombanilong over Chanchubas. So we are Jeza Dichezimta.
So what this represents is the first of the 5 enlightenments, the enlightenment through emptiness.
That gas Tongba Ruchi, Koba Tongba India, Jibu Maiba, T Tongba Tigi, Chamber Chene, Energy Tishini, Movotamji, Nilu, Tishini, Chambacha, the Jimra.
But it's not just thinking that our hearts are empty. Instead, it's remembering that this represents the suchness of the suchness. We need to recall the suchness of all phenomena.
다들 닝동바 대위, 닝콩동 대위 유수 빼마체 이제 밤래 빼매 동부지여체 다 대이딩도 알레 다외 긴고 다 냐강어여체 다 디기 대 다와레 공버 창추버스는 그도 다 디아나 대 닌달레 공버 창추버스는 다도 가다 원장아이 루버니버디 댕게야 되버래.
And then within the center of that empty space, we imagine that from a syllable pum there comes a lotus. And then on top of that lotus from the letter A, there comes a moon, a full moon. This is the visualizing the seat. So it can be a seat of a moon or a seat of a sun and moon. In any case here, this is the second stage, the enlightenment through the seat.
다들이야 빼만 되는 주 민중 천재 송도와 참삼 민중기 삼바 천재레스 디딩도 다외 긴고를 약하와 예버데 꾸주 천주기 심 천재레 송고래 제자야 된데게베 된텐 지가르에 타과 템바스나다도 된다르데 텐체 삼다나 야비와르마 드가스 빼메 동물스콤 안디간 다와르주에 삼 텐데비나 안디기 미세지 수스세브라 예 펜도르비와
The lotus represents the wish for enlightenment. The moon represents the relative bodhicitta. So you should think about the meaning, recall the meaning. So we can call this the recollecting the purity, recollecting the meaning. And this is what we need for it to be beneficial. Otherwise, if you just merely visualize a lotus and a moon, then it's really not all that beneficial for our minds.
다드네 다외킹고는 약하와테 유수 시가르부시 곰 다디기 문장 나게게 다르버 숨버디 숭 인줄령 엄버 창추버스나라도 야나 사벨령 엄버 창추버스 단도나 르버 숨버디 차디요.
And then in the middle of that full moon disk, you visualize a white letter Shri. This is the third of the 5 enlightenments, the enlightenment through the speech, the syllable, or you can also say the enlightenment through the seed.
다디 시디 가부디기 ane 바부제레스 투소 닝부 전제를 차리기다.
And this white letter Shri represents the essence of the life force and mind of the great compassionate one Avalokiteshvara.
다테네 시 가르부텔레 유스르체 다우스르 바지 가도 나서고 초시고면로 미세디 세가스케요 말디 민다 바지 가도 나서 초시고면로 시디레 유스르 가도 나서고 체 유스르 가도 나서고 체네 아니 랑기 가주라다지 새로고 통마메버네 사베기 아니 디바데 드바탐지 다소 냠바체 드네 안 바지 왜디기 아니 베 류칸이 소수기 류베 가주다지 류기 낭탐지 칸이 아니 류기 낭탐지 칸베 제리아 아니 류디 랑그 풍부 류디 아지 베메 동부 드디지리 교르송 냠바체.
Then that white letter Shri radiates out light. And this light is of many different colors. It doesn't say this specifically in the texts, but I think that it's okay to visualize it as being light of many different colors. And this light radiates out in all directions, and as it does so, then it purifies all of your misdeeds and obscurations accumulated through lifetimes from beginningless time. Then you imagine that light, as it radiates, it fills your body. It fills the inside of your body. And then that physical body transforms into a lotus stalk. And that that lotus stalk has a white lotus flower. And so what this is, it's the 4th of the 5th enlightenments, the enlightenment through the mind, the emblem.
That susugi ludi chasanlo ji peme dongbo peme karbe dongbo ji le kursa mebe chesarwa that de yongsu kurwa les tini be ne kurche that de le kap de ya sanga lameda ji karwe 다 맞이 대마시 안 되면 좋다 딱 한다 대 용수 교반에 대네 kurche and papa tuji mukundo ka sheji chashi bajil kursonya mebacha.
And so then your body has become this stalk with a white lotus flower, and then that transforms. It transforms and then becomes the great compassionate one Avalokiteshvara with one face and 4 arms.
Da cha shi cha shivudi nalolya and cha shivudi gita kadure nalolya chansen da and chageru karnan shuyoare shuvimina and cha tangbunigi da kadure zawe cha ni sgor da cha amani di and tugal temo jade 다드네 얘기 오만 되기 정진 샤가르기 팅와서 남유셰 샤가르 팅와 남대바 들었어 샤가르 팅와 남대바 에네 차 유메 유인기 오만 되기 엔 배마가르 동문 남대바 된지지 다지 창제다 차겨 창제다 차겨 된지 남대바 짓고
Now, the four arms, you might wonder, well, what are they? What emblems are they holding, or what mudras are they in? The first two arms, these are the primary or the main two arms. The hands are joined at his heart in prayer position. And with the right lower arm, it holds a mala. This is usually the white crystal mala. His left lower hand holds a white lotus.
다드네 꿀루를 림부치 게나서 게데바 다나 신기 다르게 되어다 다르게 매요 제바 되네 샵니부디 아니 도지기룬 체제 아니 가서에 배마다 나외 댕기 위나 쇼데 되지고
He's wearing various different ornaments. And he has upper and lower robes that are made of silk. His two legs are in the Vajra posture, seated on the lotus and moon.
다 셰드 다 지당기 군도 가버인데 가버태야 안다스 가르에 양 가버 가시 왜 매버든 좀 해봐. 다지 왜다 제바. 대 배순시르사는 강르를 니마샤로다고스 안 강르를 야베 니메웨 포용주사네 고 장당시주어봐 어다 되는시 장당的대봐 다는 신기다 셰드스네 야베 셰 좀바다 지 셰리아 지 좀당예 좀당게 대봐 다는 신기 겐기 규드스네 르부예 다지 예스 닌지 가르다지 닌지 가루에다 닌지 신부예베 다 순제로 이제 고유였다. 제 르보예를 치다. 이렇게 남주영 가서 여기 배배가 같이 주사네. 초드줄이야. 아니 가서 루미는 세제. 루미를 같이 저 제 리지트. 배. 되네 시와드줄이야. 아니 슈이 가서 슈제네서 슈이 입다고 쳐. 제를 무엇도 다디 조다다지 가르다디 제인데 하장배 당황만 봐. 하장 좀만 봐. 띠체 좀배 넘버를 체제 다가다지 인지기 습당으로지 쇼대버 들지 가지고 입자.
Now his body is white in color, and that white is, there are different shades of white, and some are not all that shiny, but here is a very bright white. The example that's usually given is it's like the white color of a snow mountain that is being struck by sunlight. So like when the sun shines on a snow mountain, that snow mountain is really, really bright and reflective. It's the same, the color is very bright colored body. And his mouth is smiling, and his eyes are very long. His eyes being so long is a sign of his great compassion. In Tibetan art, the tradition is that when we depict wrathful deities, we depict them with very round eyes. But when we depict peaceful deities, then their eyes are what are said to be in the shape of a bow. These are very long eyes. They're eyes that are not fully opened, nor are they fully closed, but it's like they're looking, gazing with compassion.
디 페도시라 아이나 숨서르지 아주 라치 비싼 리모트 댕에 소리들이 삼단데나 야버스게 민두사 리모트니 베 디데 상마 로직 가르주레 삼단데 다 초진의 약으로 봐. 개시 쉐딩 안 삼리야. 간다지 도시셴볼이야. 수수이게 오늘 전에 그다지 디게 춘드 다 안나시 괴시 되게 디셔버시지. 된제가 토한다지 도시 즉 샘타니보를 지다. 샘소르 셴보를 지. 된제지 용과도 개심 시라레 삼정도. 가르에서 빼는 아주기 안주는 유미지 나로래 즉 수수이게 샘타니보 유대와. 다나 신기 즉 자와 셴보 유대와. 된제가 미디도 고런 신기 체동안은 마곰바이네야 고직 셈나리아 태행하라도 치 디주 수니에도 셈리아 샤령 다이네지 디테일디 거기 따지 가수에 지 십자로 지 이미세지 삼방고도 그 돌아는지 그야 돌아들 문제 야래 따지 그래서 디디 미스 삼방타네 디 초아지 명계를 잡고 야 드리 주산에 다 조디 근데 그다 샘소르 첨보를 샘타니로 근데 지 과대 개심시라면서
Now he also has various different ornaments that he's wearing. There's the crown, there are the shoulder ornaments, and if we think about this all in too much detail, then it sort of becomes like we're looking at a drawing or thinking about a statue, and I'm not sure how beneficial that actually is. I don't think it's all that beneficial to visualize it as if we are thinking about a drawing or a painting. Maybe from one perspective it's fine to think about it with the detail of a drawing. But what I think is really most important is that we need to think about really what these represent about the Great Compassionate One. We need to remember the meaning, what they represent, and the purpose for them. Otherwise, I do not think that it is so beneficial. Generally, we need to have something that we can bring and we can call him to mind and we can think about him, think about what sort of a being he is. It's like when we remember someone whom we love, or in our regular lives, when we recall them to our minds, then we can think of them. We have the image that comes to our mind. But even when we have that, and we can think to ourselves, oh, that's how that person is, but we don't think of that person in detail. We don't think, oh, they're wearing these clothes, and these clothes have these particular patterns on them. If we were to think about it like that, we wouldn't really have much feeling. I think what's most important is that we should have some sort of a feeling in ourselves, and we should feel like we are close to him.
다 된주 투신부기 다 구용수와 된주셔베체 디기 내숨데 안 옴아홍 비 인두숨기 참아체 다 두개 참에 두개기 아주 두개 면도 질이야 안다 이시sem바 천강아송 다 이시sem바 안 제레스 공부만도 이시sem바 제레스 야 천강바 천강 천사의 야게 나를 춘세로 대 벽에 따디고 자냠네 벽에나 천사의 차수세 삼정도다 천사의 천강바사의 야게 임자 이나디 네 다디 야게 자데 냠네 야게 나라 나르기 잔나요로 춘나로 벽에 나라 그래서 자기 나로 셔주어래 벽에 나는 나로 차스래 나를 장나요 되지 다가다 개발면도 전혀 감을 직제 뒤에 두가를 시가베 시가베 예대봐 되죠.
And so in this way you visualize yourselves in being entirely the body of the Great Compassionate One. And then in your three places, there are the three syllables, Om, Ah, and Hum. Then in the heart of the Great Compassion, you imagine that there is the wisdom being. The wisdom being here is Avalokiteshvara. This is the wisdom being, and he is the size of a finger, or a finger in height. So here, the Tibetan word, it seems to be come from the Chinese word, although the vowel sound changes. In any case, he's a finger width, is the length of one finger, and his height is the length of one finger, and he is sitting in your heart. And in his heart there is a white letter Shri.
Lugi Chichung Ruji. That Ludi, Susu Ludi, Bamakabu, Cubasam, and de Tuchim Kulkuba, Mabachavi in Justane, Tuchim Kui Chichun, Susu Lu Chichun, Spachi, Congo Yusre, Tigit, Tuge, Di Tugalda, Isis, and Chunkaba, the Jibcha. That's what you got. Oh, yeah.
And so what you have to think about here is the size of your body when you're visualizing. The size is just the regular size of your body. So first you visualize that it becomes a white lotus flower. And that white lotus flower becomes the great compassionate one who is just the size of your regular body. And then within the heart of that, there is the wisdom being who is about a finger length in height.
She got Namje the Jeva. She got she Digi, da Sulia, Namje, Goni or Namje the Jeva, Gom, Televisur, Vesirti, da Nujugi, da Jide, Tamjela, Po. De Povala Dene, and a Jugi, Kasreda, Jidingi Kamtamje, Takanda, Shaye Kasomerveda. Shaye Khan Sanan Jan Dona Jiki Kaju Kasudaji Lai Potan Trouble and Jiki Dana Daji Tabe Shaye Khan, the rich Kusonia Mevache. And Jugi Simjan Hamze, Chotuji Shimbugi, good Kurson Yabache. That the dear Goman D. Nunjang Ajegan, Kuyonzola, Oba Change Sadi, a tea and shaggy, Tangun Yang Ajegan, and Jubangabati, Kuyonzola, Oba Change Sadi.
So the white letter Shri in your heart is the letter Shri, and it has the Visarga, that is the two small circles after it. You visualize this, and then you visualize that light radiates from it. And this goes and it strikes everything in the universe and all of its inhabitants. And so all the external universe, the world becomes a palace. You can say a divine palace or a pure palace. And all of the inhabitants transform into the body of the great compassionate one. And so what this is the enlightenment through the perfection of the body. Among the 5 enlightenments, this is the 5th of the 5, the enlightenment through the perfection of body.
That the Rugu Bag Lama Mambion Silva. That in a cup the Lamanian said, Trujin Simple Granlia, Kogo Usre. Says Lama Nyengi, Siene, Karasumbrasana, and the Jig Taji, Nuju Tamje, Tajan Chia, New Tamji, Shayakan, Ju Tamji, Tushim Gulia, Gomandi, Tadang around Sugi, the Delia, Tananjan. Tagwe Nawa Janga Matobe, Musu, that the day you answer the Yomanas. Ina Tadan Dilla Tanan Jang Jambaina, Mount Balia, Jani Singam number Tabalaya, give it, Gobayo Rich, soon understanding to Sane, that Nuju Tananja, Nuju Tajan Chawadi, Keshim, which is.
Now here, Lama Nyen had something to say about this, and I don't think I made it clear yesterday, but when I say Lama Nyen, this means Tsembupa himself. His Nyen, of course, is his family or his clan's name, and there are many, of course, there are many Lama Nyens in Tibet, as there may be many lamas with any single clan. But here, when we say Lama Nyen, we should understanding it as meaning Tsembupa himself. And so it is said, as Lama Nyen said, when we cleanse and purify the world and its inhabitants into the palace and the great compassionate one, we are training ourselves in pure perception. It's not like it actually transcends. We can't do that yet. But if we train in this, and if we keep training this, then in the future it creates the connection that in the future we will be able to be reborn in a pure realm. And so this is the purpose for doing it, and it is also why it is very important.
초 수단 조에 이담게 화차와 인소 다들 배 공부입니다. 아니 초 수단 초부 컨디지다 냠도 치비네 지 이담게 화 초탐지 이담게 화차도야 그 당화 인스 다당하란소 니더블라 타나 장발라 때네 마오바나 심제 탐제 랑 두저리 큐베 그 같이 보여스 드린 유사다 다다는 지 심제 탐제 바 미워도 죽으니 and the data to Papa to Shimbugi, Gulia, Cuba, Mebaru Chene. Did the Shavim, Maombal, Simja Tamje, Rang Dujeri Cuba, Raniti in Dujeri Cube, Dindy, and Zonguyeso.
And it's also similar when we visualize all the inhabitants of the universe becoming the body of the Great Compassionate One. As Lama Nyen said, then wherever we go, we should imagine that those whom we are with are the Yidam deity. So wherever we go, those whom we with, we visualize them as the Yidam deity. And this pith instruction is, if we follow this pith instruction and have such pure perception, then this creates the circumstances where in the future these beings will become our disciples in the future. So when we imagine that everyone whom we see, everyone whom we are with, becomes the body of the Great Compassion One, then in the future this creates the interdependence that will allow them to become our own disciples.
이시선바 수행 강화주하를 시등이 쉬임바 이시선바 디게 투게게 시 가르보텔레 웨스르체네 다 루보달라를 슈베 루보달라 소버 슈베 따지 루보달라 다 조디 파바체레스 루보달라 슈고바 루보달라 네 파바체레스를 소 추주 상계를 추주 소바 탐지 제한상 다 제한장에 디 지, 다다 담지바랑 깨샤버데. 다 20번 담지바 예매도 센 띠버체.
Then we imagine that light once again radiates out from the white tree in our heart, or from the white letter tree in the heart. This invites from the pure realm of the Potala, and so primarily it's inviting Avalokiteshvara, but it's also inviting all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, and these all come and dissolve into the Samaya beings. So and then the Samaya beings and the wisdom beings become inseparable.
대양 딜레야 라마니에 스부베 시앙안에 가르숨브르사나 디 플라지 드베 이담 탐제 드베 가바요소 딘데기 미버 체발 데네 안 플라지 드벌 데네 아니 이담게 라 탐제 드베 가바요소 라 탐제 드베 가바.
Now Nyen Tsembupa said that there is a particular purpose for visualizing this as well, and this purpose is that by imagining this, we imagine that that our deity will become all of the gods or all of the deities.
이담 탐제 디 Nyen Tsembupa 송르다. 이담 탐제 지도 주과데 계셔모레스. 이담 탐제 지도 주과데 계셔모레스. 이담 탐제 지도 머주버 이담 소소소소르베 튜리레리 젠 봐. 다 베너지 튜 당보디 젠에서 고마인다. 안 튜니바 던진 고마인다. 되네 진짜 제제 베 이담 튜도 젠에 곰. 되네 나한테 수이나 다지 젠 가져요. 당보 젠에서 그가 안 돼. 되네 던진 게가 안 돼. 진짜 제비 이미나 가져요. 이담과 하라 가져대 빵란진도 주고래서 다 당봉에는 제레스 공기 덤지 공기 민다스 제제 고양 빵란도 치고 봐 제레스 공 덤딩바 가져 제레스 출랑 덤딩바 빵데베 소시 진짜지 공부 이미나 맞다 가져 공대 망고 싶지야로 이담라 망고 싶죠 봐 근데 이제 산다 주주게 된거 말았어 다가는 신기 냠랜디 사부지 처음 말했어. 주도장 중고 말했어. 주바장 통고 말했어. 이제 냠래 채비나. 근데 인주산다 이담 클라 삼지 찍도 줍니. 다다 공도 쉬버는 신기. 제레스 조르규베 지 초주 상계의 창선 탐지 제한창. 다다 탐지 안랑기 지 제레스 있더라 봐 띠니. 아니 다다디 고마디 제레스도 지 제라만으로 지고 하면 봐. 아직 상계의 신수 삼아 탐지배 즉 뒤배 딱 안다. 등이를 붙이. 진짜지를 매가 chen. 진짜지 공화의 민주산 단디 계속 쉬우래서. 계획자와 라부치 윤체 매봐. 두투야기. 내가 간다. 아 가서다 맹아로 된 디에서.
It's said that it's very important for us to accomplish all of the deities at once. It's not like we should try to combine all the deities and meditate upon them once. It's not, we shouldn't try to have separate sessions for each deity. We shouldn't do it like we think, okay, my first session is going to be Avalokiteshvara, my second session is going to be Hayagriva. And then we think that these are separate, and that we have separate mantras for both of them. We have the Avalokiteshvara mantra, the Hayagriva mantra. We shouldn't do a practice like this, because if we do this, then it's actually like we're picking and choosing quite a bit. So at first we are picking Chenrezig and we're leaving out Hayagriva. And then later we pick Hayagriva and we leave out Chenrezig. There's so many deities for us to meditate upon that there's actually no time for us, not enough time to do all of them. And furthermore, as Lama Nyen Sambupa said, then our practice will not be profound, and we will never achieve any accomplishment through that if we practice in such a way. So what we need to unify all of the Yidam deities. And so here, when we visualize ourselves primarily as Avalokiteshvara, and we radiate light and invite all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they all dissolve into ourselves as Chenrezig. And if we meditate upon this, then we see that Avalokiteshvara is not just one particular deity. Instead, he is the embodiment that contains all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Meditating in this way is very important. This is said to be the pith instruction that will take all of our virtue and make all of our virtues vast and continuous.
다 당부들이야 티나네 맞추셔지. 양 텔레비스 트베 제네시라 초주상에다 장심기 고 제한창네 이시바 당지발은 딤 yang wei chui wang ge la jiao zhe ge jian chang so de wang gu lu wang xi tu xue lam ya lu ba le ba me yu jian ber sam la ma le sam yang chen yi xi sen be tu ge shi le wei shi chui sim jian tam de tu ji chen bu gyu he da ge ma ni be mi da wu de re de ber sam xi zo mi mi ba dong jian de gong ge zhe chen ju dong o 다 되게 게으름 주변.
And now to continue reading from the text. Then light radiates out from that, inviting Avalokiteshvara surrounded by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. The wisdom beings dissolve into the Samaya beings. Once again, light shines, inviting the empowerment deities, the Buddhas of the 5 families. Imagine that you supplicate them, they bestow empowerment, and you receive the 4 empowerments, and the excess water overflows, ornamenting your crown with Amitabha. Again, light radiates from the 3 in the wisdom being's heart. Think that all sentient beings become the great compassionate one, and that they all recite Mani Padme in a great hubbub. Meditate that the principal deity is unobservable great emptiness. Dedicate the virtue to enlightenment. This completes the creation phase.
다당이 공부하시면은 신기 탐지보다라 제한참에 20바트다 딤 대딤 차에 제래 라량 아니 두개실에 두개 시스템바 디기 두개 시스템백 두거 예베시 텔레버스체 왕갈라 야와증은 코다 제바 제한장 안 대다탐자 왕답에 소와답에 제라야 왕구네 와시 저버터베 메바차 드림바레.
Now this describes how, as I mentioned before, you invite the wisdom deities who come and dissolve into the Samaya beings. And then again, you imagine that from the tree in the heart of the wisdom deity in your heart, that is, in your heart, there is the wisdom being. In his heart, there is the white letter tree. This radiates out light, and it invites all of the empowerment deities, the Buddhas, the 5 families, and their entire retinues. They come, you supplicate them to give you the empowerment, they bestow the empowerment, and you imagine that you receive the 4 empowerments.
Takam digi, wala jawar ngante, ta zodi rangi lame chunje rima. Ti na sumat chevimina, rang lame chunje. Rang lame chunje ibi dusane. 다 지단는 유 자와르가 젠젠슈 누사네 젠젠슈서디 다 오미게 내라 소바네 젠젠슈가 기지 요아르데 이미냐 야티 대다진 아주 심부벨로기 티 소머베다 샤마라 나바 꾸조 야나 제샤와 티 나로라 가르손도사나 라마 셰슈 슈디에나 아니 가와 셰슈도이나 슈사 가와이나 디네 젠텐고레스 아니 셰슈 메비나 안 답의 신감 오밀라서베 답의 신감 젠텐고레스 단 도나니 도나타 간다르지 오네 랑갈라마 이발라 남바니 아니 지 겨와르니 남바체네 디지 슈가르지 디지 임라.
Now here, when we are taking the empowerment from the empowerment deities, primarily we are taking the empowerment from our own gurus. We visualize or imagine that these are our own gurus. Normally, when we invite the Buddhas of the 5 families to give the empowerment, normally we invite them from the realm of Akanishta. But what it says in the instruction manuals in Sambupa traditions, and in particular in the instruction manual by the 5th Shama Rinpoche Kunut Yenlak, is that if your Lama is living, then you imagine that the empowerment deities come from wherever it is that your guru is. If your guru is not living, then you imagine that they come from the pure realms, such as Akanishta. In any case, you imagine that as they come, in essence, they are your guru, but in form, they are the Buddhas of the 5 families, and so you invite them to give you the empowerment.
다 오네 지기 바델라마 바델라마 이발라 남바네 에 겨워링의 남바 드지 number yuedeba de jentang delia wanggue soatab ne en chage pombe duzi wanggu an wanggu ne ji chui langma de ji su su lui nang tam je chui kan chui langma de ya lu be su ya lu ne an ngo ne rang ban de lama imbala namba ne sangye we ba me namba yedeba de ji u gen son nyebe me ba che ba ibra.
And so you imagine that in essence they are your glorious guru. In form, they're the Buddhas of the five families. You invite them. Once you've invited them, then you supplicate them to give you the empowerment. Then after you've prayed to them, they bestow the empowerment by pouring water from vases that they hold in their hands. This water fills your entire body, and then it overflows. And when it overflows, then your head is crowned by one who is in essence your glorious guru, and who in form is Amitabha.
대한 라마니에 씀부베 상안에 가르숨브르사나 단 디기 급들래야 아니죠 소수기 다 소수 라마들래야 베네지 가사지래야 라마 망보 용축으로 봐 지금 현재 최인저바 예바 라마 망보 용교하래 라마 망보 용주산 다 디나는 카시 다 폐기를 잡이네 라마 지 소수 가슈엔도 보지 몇바 체슈 다 니지겔 마스나 favorite somewhere 다 몇바 체슈 디조체 안지 수수양 라메테네 몇바시다 메데바 다 딘제 고 용스기레 디기디 창물로 수수 몇바체 라마텔라 파팀 야 랑 몇바시다 메데바 라마텔야 야 수수 몇바체 라마도 출팀 퍼팀 출팀 체네 단도나 지기 예매도 고매하되 계시모를 했어.
Now here there's an instruction from the words of Lama Nyen Sembupa. So we all have the lamas, and there may be many lamas with whom we have dharma connections. And among them, if we say it in colloquial terms, some of them will be our favorites. There will be the lamas whom we feel a lot of devotion for. They're our favorites. So we should primarily imagine that they're them. But there are also many in the ranks of those who we have dharma connections with. There are many lamas whom we may not maybe have all that much devotion for. So what we should imagine is that our favorite, the lama for whom we have the most devotion, then dissolves into all of those other lamas. Then those lamas dissolve into the lama for whom we have the most devotion. So they dissolve into each other. And we should imagine that they all become inseparable in essence.
dine lama nyen sibu bege ditawu la thana majanas ane lama la panglang ta langdor chebi na nyamdo do nguru ju dume suma karesana tan dindile be thana jik lama la karjwe karjwe da jik lama changlo le ya su chende 최인 잡아야 봐. 대바터 라마 성월로야 당한 장고레스. 당한 장네. 안 간다지 라마래야 지 빵랑 쳇네. 빵랑 소머다지 다디 딩아라 최슈스 라마 인데 딱고다 딘데르 지레서 아르 봐 수도샤. 야지 수수기 매바 예스디 가조에 매바 예스디 조치아르 쳇. 매바시라 명일 봐 수도 샤드니 셰비니 야보야 마메스 가르전 딘디 추 서머베 딘딘 그라 라마치라 지기 쉐탐지긴 데바 노소나 아니 디기 슈겐디 에너지 슈겐에 바테네 라마 셴달래야 지 쉐탐지긴 데바 샤베콜리네야 디기 딘디 노르니 고 야보야 하지가 하고 싶 차대요래 드리비 뉴산 디준셀 때네 다 라마 유셀이야 대바다 타나 장고야 임바레스 디난 더기 공도 수만은 신기 다 지당기 고랑 아주 좋은 미르지 미 유산에 그런 미세아들이야 지고 가주에지기 창물로래야 지 직보르지 삼로동다 직보르지 초와 직보르 용 쓰고 말아 봐 제장 가시를 몇바체 가시를 몇바시라 매들 용 쓰고 봐 근데 이 뉴스는 다 몇바체 되는 봐 ngoni sasu rang kang meba zocha meba chewe lama di yinba jigla zo che shu ru de yinba che an di ngor yue de ba jigla an khanda lama tham che le di ngor yue de ina da jig di di jigbu che lama jigbu khasa chera ba jigbu samlo ma dam che ya lama de zu ina ta gi kong de shu ba na sing gi be jig du du ne an jig du du be gi rang zawe lama rang meba kanche lama tele lama thamji jidu duine tele ya ju meba char baji dine ju benro singdo
So what Nyen Tsenbupa said of this is that if we do not develop such pure perception of all gurus, then it's like we're picking and choosing gurus. And if we do that, there'll never be a time when we develop experience and realization. It's important for us to have the pure perception. We need to develop pure perception for all of the gurus with whom we have connections, and we can't really pick and choose which one we want. We all have many dharmas from whom we've many gurus from whom we've received dharma, and sometimes we might think, okay, this is the one who I like the best. This is the one who I have most faith in, and this one I don't like him. Well, he's okay, but I'm not so much. And so you put that one over to the side. And if you do that, then that's not the proper way to do the practice. And this is like a bad interconnection. It's bad connections, because. If we do that, then because if we have a mistaken connection of faith and devotion, faith and samaya to any one guru, then that will affect our ability to develop a dharma connection with any guru. And so, for that reason, it is important for us to have faith and pure perception of all gurus. But of course, we are all human. And being human, then sometimes we'll have a greater feeling for one guru and a greater devotion for one guru and not so much for another. So it's quite possible that this will happen. However, what we should think is that we have the essence of the gurus is the one for whom we have the greatest feeling, the greatest devotion, and then we imagine that all of the others are the same as them in essence. We make them primarily, and we imagine that all of the other gurus are that guru in essence. In any case, we shouldn't practice thinking that our guru is one discrete, distinct individual. Instead, we should imagine that their guru contains all of the gurus in one, and we need to have faith and devotion for them in this way.
심제 탐제래 포 심제 탐제라 포네 얀딜이야 같이 뒤송도 길이야 두개 가서 이시스템 디기 두가를 시여지 디 타고도 에네 이주 오만에 베메호 이게 두개 거대봐 근데 몇번 채우려 송도 이내다 미기도 지난 티디나 세가스겜도가 디 공고를 미세세 송도 마검나 지금도 딱 검나 지기기를 마검나 지기기래 안다리야 디 외스르체 외스르체 발 때네 되네 심제 탐제 투시 청구 그렇게 매바체
Next is the recitation of the mantra. And so what is the visualization while we're reciting the mantra? Well, you have the wisdom being in your heart, and in his heart there is the white letter Shri that radiates out light, and that light strikes all sentient beings. Now, actually, in some manuals it says that the wisdom being in the center of your heart and has the Shri, and around the tree there are the 6 syllables Om Mani Padme Hum. Mikyo Dorje does not specifically say this, so I think it's fine if you don't visualize it. If you visualize it, it's okay, and if you don't, it's also fine. In any case, you visualize that light radiates out from it, and it strikes all sentient beings so that they transform into the great compassionate one.
다 당부 랑게 ngande 당부 랑게 오만베모 시베 ngадinda 다 ngадin 데베 젤야 다 ngande 디고 톱주지 다 디규규네 사마르 꾸마르 체 랑게 주르 라마 군디 더니 다 라마 군디 더니 상게베바 메 넘버 쇼데바 디기 세네강 되네 이게 중에 대바 제베 메바체
And so first you visualize that you yourself are reciting the mantra. You yourself are reciting Om Mani Padme Hum. And because of the strength of this sort of inspires the being, and that is that it inspires the Amitabha, whom you're visualizing above the crown of your head, who in form is Amitabha, but in whose nature is the union of all the gurus. It inspires him so that so that he also recites the 6-syllable mantra.
다드네 주기 셈제 탐제 어떤 투지심부 구르큐데바 대다 탐제 기강 되네 마니기 다우 우디르 드베 메바체.
And then all of the sentient beings in the universe also become the body of the great compassionate one. And you imagine that they all also recite the Mani mantra in a great hubbub.
다 티 카시나로라 랑기 루기 심부티즈기 랑기 루기 심부탐제 할게 공래양아주 수수기 루이디 하게베 걸리야 루기 심부티즈이네 냠도 하게 하르지 겐 된도고에 숨고하래 아니 디 데바체베 걸리네 랑 루기 심부 하게베 디즈기 데바체베 메바체 제송도 다이네디 네 타기게 미세스 켈라메 다디 고문한지도 마고문한지면도 다디 지 루기스부터 박테리아 짐도 박테리아 다디 지 고면알레라 비치스 마네 당연 마고문지면도 나지 디스 세난도 하이 고면알라 세난도 탭 스머베 세난도 야부충 템분도 충분입니다 아니 디주 저기 냠내 전에 아무면도
Now, it's also said in some instructions that you can visualize all of the bacteria and parasites in your body as being the great compassionate one. It's not mentioned here in Mikyo Dorje's, but above, as you visualize yourself as the great compassionate one, as the deity, you can also imagine that all of the parasites within you also become the great compassionate one. And then during the recitation, you imagine that they also recite the 6-syllable mantras. So it's not specifically mentioned here in Mikyo Dorje's, and I think it's fine if you do it. It's fine if you don't do it. I don't think it's that easy to do it. I think primarily, once you can have a clear visualization, if you have a good, clear visualization, then you try of yourself, then if you try visualizing this as well, then it will work well.
다들이야 라마니에 츠부비 시앙하네 장직 대바체메르 고바여서 자 드레 미바샤디 그리고 수수 머니 찍사요 누사다 수수 사바자마인바 다지 랑기 지원의 쇼베 라마 군두가 더니 디 사베 메바체 이 심자 탐제 도시신부 꾸르 고미샤바 대주 사베 메바체 뉴사네 아니 장지기 대바 대바 체메바 저 장가 체메바 주야기 그거 예수
And so Lama Nyen Sembupa said that this is the purpose of this is so that the numbers of mantras become uncountable. So when we visualize, it's not just ourselves reciting the mantra a single time. We recite it a single time, but it's also the guru above the crown of our head whom we are visualizing in the form of Amitabha also reciting. And in addition, it's also being recited by countless numbers of sentient beings. And so, as Tsenpumpa said, the purpose is that we recite innumerable mantras.
다드네 디제소 더더디 미규도 치나 수만나 조 미미고 동신도 곰 소르바 제자 안디 슈델이야 에너지 수 가져야 수탐제 나동 송주 송예더고 에너지 다탐제 차동 송주 차자더고 때네 다 이기 교화 탐제 에네 사동 송주 다 가르질라오다 사동 송주 멜로나가 송예더 슬람 드그메도 사동 송주 멜로나가 송예더 쳔네 딘데게 고네 다지 동번이기 알이야 냠버샤고 레소
And then, as is written in Mikyo Dorje's instructions, meditate that the principal deity is unobservable great emptiness. And so here you visualize that all forms become the union of appearance and emptiness, like a reflection. All sounds become the union of sound and emptiness, like an echo. And all of the movement in your mind becomes the union of clarity and emptiness, like a reflection in a mirror. And so in this way, you need to rest within emptiness.
다디 개침보 예수노와 조 동번이 과디 타만들 동번이 과디 개침보 예스 다디네 디제래야 이견되는 주 티난 미세 미규도 티난 미세 소민도 되네 다 리지 이견되네 하세 강 하바의 체버도 중요하나 내가 체버가 디기 내가 정한 체도 아니 이견돼 안 다르게와 조상동오 대신에 다 되게 기름기 어래 나다로래 기름이 냠래 차상하지 다 뭐지 기름 거를 주베임래
And then after that, and meditating upon emptiness in this way is very important. It's important to conclude the practice with this meditation upon emptiness. Following this, although it's not mentioned specifically in Mikyo Dorje's commentary, you can recite the 100-syllable mantras. So you recite the 100-syllable mantra in order to amend any omissions and so forth. And then after that, you dedicate the virtue to great enlightenment. And so this completes the entire practice of the completion of the creation phase.
ngaranzu di shirvni vinale sumana singi tuni shigor de jan samdana yamumero samtado pena ji sutamje nandon sunju sunye de sunje di gor tuni shigor da jan su tongba ni su tongba ni de su karsata su tongba ni su sulu je tongba ni si tongba le su si mainos je sundeaki tuni shigorde jar ene dra telia tenashi jar da tongba ni daos da jar jomer da na singi ene yiti so ne ya da sem tongba ni sem so da jar jomer da ga da ji chen de ga tuni shigorgi gwane da tongba ni da samdana ya mer sam chang dos ma ji dang tuni shigorgi gorde 다다디 티 제마 님부 되었음기 티디 나노 돈이 시골고 개발을 주원디도 제자들인데 쉬먹어서
Now, when we are contemplating the meaning of emptiness, then I think it's good to meditate upon this following the teachings from the Heart Sutra on the fourfold emptiness. So like when we visualize, when we contemplate that all forms are the union of clarity and emptiness, then if we combine this with a meditation on the fourfold emptiness, then it's like saying, form is empty, emptiness also is form. Form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. And so we combine that, the contemplation with that, with that. We also can do the same for sounds. Sounds are empty. Emptiness also is sounds, and so forth. And we can also do this with the mind. All mind, or all cognitions are empty. Emptiness is all cognitions, and so forth. And so in this way, I think it's helpful to combine this contemplation of emptiness here with the contemplation of the fourfold emptinesses. Now, the fourfold emptinesses, of course, are discussed at greater length in the next instruction that we will have, the three essential points, and so I will not describe them in great detail today.
다드네 니버디 조름게 거더래. 다 조름게 거더 지당기 치 신다 나라라 조름게 거돌이야. zolong기 냠len 대시용데도 다이나 미규도 디가리아 조디 조림 차게 쳔비 권에다 냠레나도 조나제다 드리지마다.
Now following this comes the completion phase. In other instructions following the dissolution of the deity, there are instructions on meditating on the nadis and bindus. But Mikyo Dorje does not describe this, and instead he primarily describes the completion stage meditation on Mahamudra.
다디 나네가 지단게다 차게 쳔무텔이야 남기 돌루기 차세 응얼루기 차세 다 님비루 차세 사지 용데 도와 다이는 조디 동안이 차신 니버디 임자 대인다 급딜이야 손대야 차게 쳔무디 동안이기 나네 지 너의 차신의 시체와로지 용되면 로섬처.
Now, generally, when we discuss Mahamudra, there are three different traditions. There's the Sutra tradition Mahamudra, the Tantra tradition Mahamudra, and the Essential tradition Mahamudra. And primarily, we emphasize the Sutra and the Tantra tradition Mahamudras. Here, the Mahamudra taught here between these two, the Sutra and Tantra Mahamudras, primarily emphasizes the Sutra Mahamudra.
다 지당기 차생이 티디즈난 전되나데야 차게 전부디 주 누르게 차생训练 这个도 다간다 다당은 남규 가자 뭐 버리도 치마 아네 나다 제수 좀 손대야디 저 능게 유스래.
Now, generally, the Mahamudra that is described in our texts on Mahamudra is primarily the Sutra Mahamudra. Its essence is the paramitas, and it is compatible with the Tantras.
다들이 네 조림 차생 거데 선이 쉬는 지금으로 마찬 아주 순주지야 니만 가서요. 니만 주요. 니만 니 차라. 다버지 니만 니 주 오야 레 선이 쉬인스.
Now, I will teach on the completion phase Mahamudra tomorrow. We have 6 days of our teaching, so we'll continue with the completion phase Mahamudra tomorrow.
아버지 네 가돌이야 츠부베 로기 티들 니마숨 님보테숨 티들 니마숨제 드지야나 바지 지금도 섬창도.
And so I think in this way we'll have 3 days on the Tsembupa tradition, on the direct instructions on the Great Compassionate One from the tradition of Tsembupa, and 3 days on the 3 essential points.
다디 레다 레 아니 다 니시디 그런 거 알아 찾지 다 가서 다디 내가 디 더좀 참샤 다드네 다 구주의 제베 거치 지가시 주고만 로 something도 다마지 뒤주디스도가 구주의 제베 거치 주고만 로 something.
And so we will leave it here for now, and we still have a bit of time, so I'd like to say a few words in connection with the Gunche.
다 지단기 다 군주디 가져다 다 기저로 가는 거죠. 아도 현금으로 데 지단다 배가진 종리야 지기 지 가져다 상계 대바 이 창라만으로 서머베다 든지지 응외기 지 담반는 이구진을 때네 다시 개와 든지 중요하래.
Now, in general, in Tibet, in the snowland of Tibet, the teachings of the Buddhas flourished in their entirety and without mistake. And this is primarily because of the kindness of the great beings of the past.
다들이야 지기 세배 토안의 체위면은 지당기 땜방아들 겁다 땜방아들기 겁기 지기 루규디서 세버스타메비 인상 데 가져다 아버지 시에야다 클라하우르세 다 땜바치더 겁이야 수디 안 벽은 나렌저 니바 성부 니부 토스 성비 대사 때문에 전에가 따지기 벽이 나렌저 니베수 차리요 아래 벽은 나렌저서는 저거래 나는 나렌저 니베서는 저거래 딱 안다지 벽이 지기 세변 중내를 버지 차리기 유스래 안디 나로를 지기 세배 대탕 모두 버지 성부 니부터 제대로 차리면 로서 두스 정도 성부 최대스 람 저거다 성부 대사 성부사대 롱버지 미래.
Now, when we talk about the history of Dharma in Tibet, you can divide it into the earlier, the ancient, or the earlier and the later transmission. The history of the earlier transmission of the Dharma is not so clear. It's difficult to say too much of it. But during the later tradition, then there were monasteries that appeared in Tibet that we could say are Tibetan Nalandas, or you could call them the second Nalanda. And one of the first of these was the Tsambu Monastery.
Sambu dance cha madab konliya dunzu ni ki sheba chungse yares kyale khasa pheliya duwa de zögi sheba chungse yares ina use ki sheba di zudi 아니 저 올로자가 전부니 마체세 아니 성부기 추규 다 성부기 드레마 다르네 충분해서 드레 송도와 알 하버도 성부 다 댄서바 숨바면로 버지 댄서바 니베 인스 성부 댄서바 니베 인스 다 지제나 지스 니베 인스 다디 차바 쉬기 있은게 차바 쉬기 있으면 무슨 구dun리야 그 디급이야 에너지 우체 생긴 기능에서 디디 충분해서 되는 송도와 우마데 참만이 냠도 송제치지 다르 줘봐 다디디 지 우체 생긴 기능에서 지 생긴 기능과 배지 너네 지 유에데 다지 우체 생긴 기능에서 아니 차바치 있으니고 겁리야 총벌에 내 순수에도
Before the founding of Tsambu Monastery, there were the teachings, the traditions, the Vinaya and the Abhidharma studies, but it was really from that time that there began to be studies of the middle way and of validity. And so these really spread from the time of the founding of Tsambu Monastery. In particular, at the Tsambu Monastery, there is a tradition of studying the middle way and validity together, and this study and this tradition of study began at the time of the great master Chapa Chukyi Senge.
이내 급디주스다는 세마디 조의 세만낭예스교래. 세만낭예를 란제 초지네 세만낭예를 최기 잡에 란제 차상 유회장 차상화지 유회 인상 디기 김세면로 간다를 급디주스다는 세만낭예 조스도. 아 치수 사기 비디드 심이 급이야. 아니 지금 세만남제 시가지 다수를 총제. 안 치수 아주 다지 세만남제 지 주규 상월로 세만남제 조스야지 용디가 어봐.
With the study of validity, it was primarily at that time studied based on the text, the ascertainment of validity. This is in part because there is an auto-commentary on the entire text, and that's probably the reason why they studied it. They focused on the ascertainment of validity. It was later, during the time of the Sakya Pandita, that the study of the commentary on validity, or the Pramanavartaka, became widespread. And later, in all of the different Dharma traditions, they focus on the study of the commentary on validity.
다는 시급 디주스다는 우마를 유베 조이마다. 마시 때방아다르 겁리야. 그래서 우마를 유베의 슈체면로 삼버지. 별 때방아다르 겁리야. 때 우마를 유베의 슈체면로 삼버지도. 다가는 신기 차바추신 기주 구듈이야. 우마를 유베 조르시. 우마를 유베 인상 아니 정규 다고야라 소바 되게 토하는 자바차요. 그래서 우마의 세만이디 송제 야고지 도토야를 저지 도지 김세진의 돈이 온데 면도 섬청도.
And at this time, they also emphasized the study of the autonomous school in the Middle Way teachings when they studied the Middle Way. It seems also during the early transmission of the Dharma that the teachings of the autonomous school were much stronger at that time as well. Likewise, at the time of Chapa Chukyi Senge, they primarily studied the autonomous school of the Middle Way. And so in studying the autonomous school, this means that they would be able to present autonomous evidence and as proof of their syllogisms. And so for this reason, they were able to have a union of the middle way and of the teachings on middle way and validity.
Teneda Chawashik Singi Gudulia and Azuda Kajwe Dada Gama da Gundinamo to some Kamada. Then a Pamacho does Gavo. And then a Sardon Shogum. That is what the Kamba Misum Shorba says a Kamba Misum Budea, Sumbulia, Lomiernan. Sugar, says the Kamba Misum de the Chawachigi Singi, Lometel Shire.
Now, three of the people who studied with Chapa Chukyi Senge included the first Karmapa Dusum Khenpa, the Kampa Dorje Gyaltsen, as well as Salton Shugom. These are known as the three men from Kam. So it seems that they all studied at Sambu with Chapa Chukyi Senge.
다들이 이제 다 가르쳐서 그래. 지단기 뒤숨 캠바 더버지 차츠면이미나 공 캄네 위장래야. 폐야의 조 당부 폐야의 롬년난가 폐면로 섬정도 캄네 위장의 폐 lomnyer lochungni na paje lochungni zise ta paje lomnyer lochungni ta tele fa ore kanda lomnyer lochungni na sha chungni la na yubcha.
For example, with Dusum Khenpa, the primary reason why he went from Kham to central Tibet was in order to study. And he spent 12 years. He probably actually spent a little over 12 years studying there.
Tabulaji kunjuri jane and juba nangarwa juba nyamle na dirije chomre ina tomat je twesam lomye gyujung butze zeyewe imre.
Later he went to Gampopa and did his meditation practice, but first of all he studied for a long time.
Da dene ma je lusane da kamabu kunjing ribe da dene ma kamabu kunjing chube kablia. Dene sagebe kaja pandis sagebe de kebachemu rondun shije kunzi rondun gi kundu ne kamabu chube gi da shung chimi shebatin de sen yusane shung chimi gi shebatin de sen and go to the rondun ki mishindalia taji karjue zibuchi sundu sana o tangala loma sangi yeba yins ngal loma sangi ji ordas de jeje ane be karjue da sun kar poba chene sunga de chumre skanda chube kablia de ji shunche molia ji seba sen jon zar de shung Dijelea Kamaba Kundin Dubeklia and the Kamatileva Chemo. A Kong Loma, a Kamatileva Chemo, Sagebi Kevasi Sagebi Keva Chamjin Ramjamba Shuajo, the Kevacham Sujari, Pergna Ramjamba Tomateins, the Sundua, Ramjamba Sagi, Tendi, Chamjin Ramjambi, Kolishin Chumbres, the Sundua. 제사 잠재 람잠베기 로마 까마틀레바 잠재 람잠베 로마 쳐요래 다 잠재 람잠베 지단 로마 버지 디 고람바에 잠재 람잠베 로마 차디요래 다드는 드유게세사주 야 셔르치 무쇼르바 드유게세기 가르사 다 류게세 개버죠 다 제제제사다 다 개버면 다 간단 류게세 개버치면 좋아래 개럽 당부를 차리요래 류게세 개보 당부 차리요래 그 차리 요새 간다 콩에 잠자람자로 말해 엔 까마틀레바 잠자람자로 말해 이내 까마틀레바 치수 까마부디 버쳐라이로 말차 다 콩 슝루 개바 인사 되게 균이 제제 지당구랑 그래 까마부 쳐라져서 코란야 아니디 발치기 장외기 개와의 송도와 개와의 송제 남제디기 상물로 가지 툴을 주고 그랬어 남제디 상물로 춤디 툴을 주고 그랬어 제가 딘데 다는 코란 로마데 개바 침부지 인사 딘데 제제 아니 까마까마상 처리야 아니 통마 시베데 통마르디 그지 까마부디 버쳐라져서 그래야 충분히입니다.
Later, when it got to the time of the sixth Karmapa studied with the great Sakya master Rongden Sherab Gyaltsen. He studied with the Ketse Khenpo Kunga Chutsang. He studied with him and studied and became very well versed in the great philosophical texts. And at that time, Rongdun said that, it's kind of boasting a little bit, I have a student who is a Buddha. It's like he was trying to inspire confidence in people. At any rate, it's clear that the 6th Karmapa became very well versed in the philosophical texts at that time and was one of his students. The next Karmapa, the 7th Karmapa, Chuda Gyatso, he had a student named Karma Chinnepa. Now, Karma Chinnepa had first been a student of the Sakya master Jamyang Rabjampa. He was actually the first person in Tibet who was given the title of Rabjampa, so he was a very well-known scholar, a very highly regarded scholar. And one of his students was Karma Chinnepa. Karma Chinnepa spent many, and this Chanchut Rabjampa also had many students, including Gorampa, Dorje, Kyetse, and so forth, and as well as
Kyetse Khenpo.
Kyetse Khenpo. And they were all very well-known scholars, and so among them was this Karma Chinnepa. Now, Karma Chinnepa also later became a student of the 7th Karmapa. Now, the 7th Karmapa was also known as like a rebirth of Dharmakirti. He had memorized the entire commentary validity, and he was well known for being a great scholar a great scholar. And so at that time, with the 7th Karmapa, with Karma Chinnepa, that's the time when the tradition of study or colleges of study were established in the Karma Kamsan tradition.
Then that time kinjevere yawanduba ki ene dadi kasha chemegi chema namje ndoda chebe da deba ngazu di jishun gyazu tu zeyorba a diru sane chungyi di tagramba 타보람자마 다 타그람베 체데 정면도 다 타그람바 시고래 중이데 바지 타그람베 다 타그람베 인주산에 타그람베기 중이 체베 급디디기 손나한데 공 지어디 제장디 제장이야 디주산에 안공베 파츠 다 디마차라자주 가르치는 가서 배게 얼바 아니 지 바르다 충분히미나 주주 충주산에 안다 지 규모는 다 다람베 규모 슈주산 다디 참 가war레수 지거리는 그래서 어다 참 델레수 슈주산에 어다디 배자도 쓰고 말았어 인연을 배자다 강가요 말았어 어다 들마 통는마 소용 그랬어 통는마 소용 공기 봐 저리 나지들이 충분해서 다드네 dimachara 저기 저기 퍼진기 제바죠라 지딘 숨주 급당부 차상 요만에 심게 받듯이 요새 차상하지 요만에 데라 다람비 가르수어서나 다 중이 안라버지나 급디도 중이 안라버지나 안디 척을했어 차상 척을했어 구마슝게르 시다마 슝제 데지 촐류네 차상은 쭉 못주버지 얘기해버렸어. 다람비 가르쳐서나 다 중이디 안라버지나 안디 상마 처르래지. 근데 숨벨로 규르도 수여자 제자 다더디 남제 도다제베 다 제바디 지슌 자주 다들 아주 남제들 주사 당아주 대가라 디시샤체 또 쓰기어 봐. 다디기 세공 다디 말람데 망보차는 요쇼.
Now, as you all know, the 7th Karmapa Chudagyatso wrote the Ocean of Literature and Logic, a commentary on the texts of validity, including the commentary on validity and the compendium of validity. Now, the scribe at that time was Dakrampa, and he described in the colophon his feelings or his impressions of writing this. Of course, at this time, the 7th Karmapa Chudagyatso was traveling in the Great Encampment. And so when they came to a spot where they would stay for a while, then Dr. Rampa would request him to please to teach a little bit more. The seventh Karmapa would say, oh, well, just remind me, where did we leave off? And Dakarampa would remind him, and then Chodajasa would just start reciting the text and composing it entirely from memory. He didn't have any texts or any books near him at all. And so he composed it entirely from memory. The seventh Karmapa Chodajasa also has a commentary on the Prajnaparamita, the lamp of the three worlds. But this isn't a complete. It only goes up through the section on bodhicitta. And what Dakarampa said is, if there had been a scribe like me, then it would have been entirely finished, because there had to have been a scribe who would go to the seventh Karmapa and remind him, please continue writing. So Dakarampa said that if there had been a scribe like me, this text would have been finished. In any case, with the ocean of literature and logic, it is a commentary. It is a commentary on the commentary on validity and the compendium of validity, and it is what we use when we study validity, with the commentary on validity as our basis.
다들 영어 미주도 지기 다 조시네 되게 까마틀레바 다 까마틀레바 사데 권해를 지래 생원에 말해 권해를 지래 그런 생원에라 초래 남게 쇼래 다 까마틀레베기 때 그런 거 용진 넘버 10세 까마 미주도 지 용진 넘버 10세 용돼요 다디나 조 도쇼기 다지 슝기 셰바 센서디 조데 까마틀레바래 디군드는 도쇼기 슝기 셰바도 센 안 거는 이게 투좀 베나지 아주 우메주베 뜨거래 다는 시신기 뜨거래 다는 신기 죄가 뜨거래 다는 신기 뒤에 뜨거 다 되게 차상으로 이제부터 중요해 그래 드네 주스나다지 슝가병이 제바디 차상하지 양왕 좀 예배기 노스 제바디 중요해 그래.
The next Karmapa, Mikyo Dorje, was a student of Karma Chinlepa. Now, Karma Chinlepa actually is his title. It's not his actual name. His actual name was Chokle Namgyal. But he was known as one of the four tutors, or the four masters of Mikyo Dorje, and he primarily taught him the texts from the sutra tradition. So that was Karma Chinlepa. And so Mikyo Dorje studied from him, and later he wrote his great commentaries on the Middle Way, on Prajnaparamita, on the Abhidharma, and on the Vinaya. He completed all of these commentaries, and so in this way we have commentaries on all 5 of the great philosophical texts written by the 7th and 8th Karmapas.
다 공기 로메 주르데 샤만 ngaba 디 구조연라레 공기냐 슝제 갈라간좀 엄버제야레 다디 로마 경 구바 차디야레 구베냐 근데 배실 미유도지기 슝 폐체알이야 디 슝디주 가르 다 뒤륜소지 람 지금에도 다가다 슝디바 뒤륜소 제제 인데여비브레 다디 로마디 샤마르 주버레 샤마르 주베기 바지 다 까마바 지 군진공 제샤바기 슝디줄레 지든 바지 슝 참으로래야 지든 진제여다.
Now the primary student of Karmapa Mikyo Dorje was the 5th Shamar, Kunchit Yenlak, who also wrote quite a few commentaries on the philosophical texts. His student was the 9th Karmapa, Wangchit Dorje, who also wrote commentaries based upon Mikyo Dorje's. You could say that they are abridged versions of Mikyo Dorje's texts. And his student was the 6th Shamar Rinpoche. And the 6th Shamar Rinpoche wrote general discussions of all of the different philosophical texts.
다 샤마르 rinpoche게 다 가르에 마시 샤마르 rinpoche의 충두인 공로 주주가 걸려야 아래 슝망부 통지낭 통지낭 버선도 마세베 공로 주주 녜려야 shumang부 통진나 안 되게 저기 미망부 초살이야 봐 교대 그럼 미망부 초살이야 교대 되 종샤 안 다는 신 공로 주주 셰베걸이야 차고를 편 장음을 취해다 안 저실은 몰라서 같은데야 차고를 편 나샤 다디디 개워시 뭐지 다디 제리야 신 정말로 하나들이 충분해 다드네 다 영어 주베 걸이야 되네 소부마 아니 유산이야 레 아니 소부 말레 유산 안 디기 베데 가르르다 지베 지당기 다 조다지 감사한다 안 주거기 다 디나는 지 감사 안 디디 지베 도시 첨부로 총세 아 드네 손데 퍼지다 지기 시야라데 상월로 냠 지 세베 윤디 소에나 칼리 전에 체 세베 데드 소에나 디디 냠데 디디 총입니다
The sixth Shamar was from the age of 16. He had studied many different texts and he had memorized quite a few texts. He had actually memorized several before them, and at the age of 16 he memorized others, and he was able to take a test on reciting them in the presence of many different people. And then later he went to the north to Japur, and so forth. And there's not too much need to go into detail on that right now. Later, the next Karmapa was the 10th Karmapa, and it was during the time of the 10th Karmapa that the Mongolians came down to central Tibet. And this brought great destruction upon both the Karma Kagyu and the Drukpa Kagyu, but especially on the Karma Kagyu. It was from that time on that the tradition of the Shudras waned, and you could say that the transmission of the scriptural transmissions were lost.
지기 가르에 지기 별이나래 야나로리나래 지금 아주 그 유상물로 지기 디자지 셰발라 셰바차리아 지기 셰발로 롬녀차리아 지기 참여에게다 돈아 첨부시 레디요래 갈라간 좀 야게 남바 사브를 주온디요래 드린 땅안 참여기 다 공도 쉬번나시기 토랑에 고야래야 땅 아주 지기 셰바디 지 롱, 지 순계를이야. 다 간다봐 지금 연구를 친데 봐. 다 디기 지 세배 윤데 야 소투가 아주. 드린 주산 땅 아주 가제 두두기 엔다지 롱 순계엘이야. 아니지 양왕 군제 점제 양왕 가마 군제 점제 다 디기 다지 세기 투 대다 탐지가 제샤와 진짜게 다지 이제되게 될 양 아주 대체 안 대다 탐지게 다지 공 다들 아주 지 냠시를 제 잡아버 내내 체제 근데가 토네 다지 세배 균지 라수 체도야 근데 지기다 공부 야점을 세워야 돼 개좀 자리도 와 드린 주스 땅 아주 지금 괜찮죠 지 다가서 랭겐도 첨부지 용디요 아 드린 주스 산티 주선 때네 안 현다 민저 아 현다 민저와기 다가나 아주 상배기 지기 배주 다지 가지에다 배주 장부를 제제 내가 또한 다가는지 세배규 알 예버데 지 냠발라스 체도야 되지기 개셔과데 개심시라레스 수샤이 다도 주신 당의 쇼미
Now, whether we think about karma kajis in Tibet or in India, these days we have more and more interest in the studies and philosophy. There's a great interest that has arisen, and this is very good. But one thing that we do need to recognize is that over the course of 300 years, the tradition has waned, and we need to revive the tradition as much as we can. We need to do whatever we can in order to be able to recover what was available 300 years ago, all the texts that were written by the different Karmapas as well as their great disciples. We need to revive these traditions and recover these texts. And once we do that, we also need to treasure them and consider them very important. And by doing this, we will be able to revive the tradition of study. Now, this is actually extremely important, and it is also a very great responsibility for us. It's a great project, and it's a great responsible for us. It's one different than for other traditions. It will require a lot of effort. But if we are able to, it is very important for us to take upon ourselves this responsibility to revive the previously existing traditions of teachings.